Assalamualaikum and good morning to Dr. Dahlia and fellow friends. My name is Normahira Betty Zakaria. Today, me and my friends will present about consumer credit. I will start with background of consumer credit. Basically, consumer credit, often known as a consumer debt, which is a credit facility that provided to the individual for them to purchase a products and services. Sellers began offering installment payment arrangement for sewing machines, furniture, and other household products at the beginning of the 19th century. For the prior to the 1920 seconds, there were limited demands for credit such as for durable items, house modification and repair, college tuitions and vehicles. Urbanization and the mass production of consumer products contributed significantly to the rise in consumer loan demand. These improvements began in the 19th century and have intensified significantly during the Second World War. Henceforward, consumers utilize credit extensively today. The practices of giving credit transaction to consumer is commonly in Malaysia. The expenses of living rises year after year, affecting various segments of society, particularly the lower and the middle classes. Consumer credit is provided by commercial banks, merchants, and non-banking financial firms to enable customers to purchase items and repay the amount in various formats afterward. Cash loans, bank overdrafts, credit sales, and conditional sales are the example of these transactions. In consequence, consumer credit is divided into two basic categories, which are open account credit and loans. With open account credit, loans are created continuously as you make purchases, and you are frequently billed for at least partial payment. Open account credit created to make a purchases to avoid cashless by using bank card or credit card. Lastly, loans are utilized for a certain purpose for a specific sum for a particular amount of time. Payments are normally made in equal installments. There are a variety of loans including mortgages and car loans as well as personal loans and educational loans. The repayment terms including the numbers of payments, the payment amount and the cost of the credit are detailed in the contract or agreement. That's all from me.
Consumer credit is a short-term or medium-term loan used to finance each purchase or subscription of a service or to refinance debt incurred for that purpose. Okay, the loan can be given in two forms of loan, either sales credit or cash loan. Consumer credit can be used in time of emergency and unexpected situations such as financing hospital treatment. Okay, then consumer credit is a form of facilities where consumer can afford to buy urgent and urgent product or service without using cash at that time of purchase. Okay, consumer do not have to take a long time to collect money to get the goods, and it is easy fear that the goods will be sold out in the market if it takes too long time to get enough money. Credit card can be help consumer make a payment and book through websites for online services such as booking hotels, planes, tickets, and online shopping. Booking that can use a credit card can make it easier to identify the user's identity. Next, financing the cost of higher education. For example, education loan like PTPTN is one example of consumer credit where students can cover the cost of learning while studying without thinking about financial problem.
Next is the importance of consumer credit. Credit enables people to purchase assets and necessities like a house or a car that is typically difficult to pay in full. It also allows people who have little or no cash to obtain funds for essential living expenses like food and housing. Besides, consumer credit can ensure the efficiency of business transactions and rapid economic growth. A lack of money and a limited supply of raw materials have made it difficult for least developed countries to grow economically. Credits enable businesses to acquire the resources they need to generate the goods and services that consumers demand. Lastly, consumer credit could provide capital to the businessman. It affords businessmen the possibility of launching a business without financial constraint, enable them to manage their resources efficiently and build up a healthy business structure. For example, credit can be used to fund a new project, expand operation, or hit against inflation.
Let's move on to the current issue of the consumer credit. The article B&M aimed to pass the Consumer Credit Act in 2022, picked from ringgitplus.com. In 2022, the year of the recovery, with the country entering an endemic phase and foreign border reopened, which has boosted consumer sentiment. According to the aforementioned article, Bank Negara Malaysia is striving to adopt the Consumer Credit Act in 2022. The goal of changing the regulation framework for all consumer credit activity, the buy now and we pay later (BNPL) system. To be clear, BNM has already presented this Consumer Credit Act as one of the strategies in the 2018-2020 business plan. According to Bank Negara Malaysia, Governor Datuk Nur Syamsiah Muhammad Yunus, the central bank would work with the Minister of Finance (MOF) and the Security Commission (SC) to pass the act because of this issue.
Last but not least, I am Shafika Erdina will talk about recommendation that can solve consumer credit problem. First of all, the first recommendation that can solve the problem is take control of your spending. What we can do is if you can't control yourself from spending money, leaving your credit card at home is a good idea. This will make you more frugal and not spending your money on unimportant items. Next, if your credit card company offer you a higher amount, please decline. This way, it will make you more vigilant when shopping. Moreover, another recommendation is pay as much money as you can toward your debt. Paying off debt means paying less interest, allowing you to save money for other things. By applying this method, you will not be overburdened by your current debt and will be able to pay off your remaining bill quickly. This is because the more money you put into your debt repayment, the more money you will have for another purpose. Besides that, stop using credit is the one of the best recommendation that can solve credit problem. This method will drastically and immediately reduce your debt. We can use cash rather than credit since it's the most effective strategy to avoid being trapped by various sorts of debt. Another option is to use debit cards, which are more convenient than credit card. Last but not least, any additional cash can be used to pay off debt. If we have a lot of saving in our account or get a surplus of money in the form of a tax return, we may spend it to pay off the overdue debt. As a result, you will save more money in the long run since your interest expenses will be lower. In conclusion, we will be able to overcome the credit crisis and our economy will continue to grow if we use the offered technique.
Import duties were among the earliest taxes introduced because imported product could meet local demand. For example, if a country has a prolonged winter, then agriculture activities cannot be carried out, so importing food products is a necessity. Taxes have their own history and also existed in the early civilization of the world. For example, during the Greek and Roman eras, taxes were levied on consumption. The tariff on each imported goods is to be something very important for government income compared to the production of revenue. In the middle various compulsory services and the system of assistance, there is a direct levy were given priority. Most of it is the form of gift. All resident in all urban areas are subject to the concept of taxes obligation as the tax burden on the food and beverage is partly borne by consumer and the others part is borne by traders and also producers. Throughout history, taxes have been a major subject of political circles and have been controversial. Okay, throughout history, before taxes form a sizable national income, a well-known example of controversy is the revolt carried out by the American colonies against Great Britain. Taxes were more influenced by wars, where at that time, the revolution did not affect the taxes imposes. Okay, because a war country needs huge funds for war equipment, taxes of a temporary nature that oppress the population. In the present era, income tax is the enacted by parliament. The monarchy seem to have lost power since the outbreak of the revolution. Democracy dominates government in every country and many leave the monarchy system. Various taxes have been introduced from the parliament vote.
Next is statistical information about consumer credit. This is the recent value graph and longer historical series graph. According to the information of Malaysia Consumer Credit above, billion of the currency unit were used in Malaysia from December 1996 to April 2022. The average value between this period was 235.06 billion Malaysian ringgit with minimum 56.74 billion in December 1996 and maximum 440.73 billion Malaysian ringgit in April 2022. As you can see, it shows a commercial bank provide loan to household and individual for any purchased goods and services. Malaysia Consumer Fiscal Support Program, however, will be cut back in 2022. The cost of living will increase significantly for people as a result of inflationary pressure, rising price for necessities and greater borrowing expenses. Some Malaysians may not be forced to rely on the personal credit card and loan to satisfy the increasing demand as a result of this. This calls on Malaysia to be aware of the situation and arm themselves with the financial knowledge necessary to accurately determine what is the risk in relation to their existing credit and financial situation in order to manage their credit score going forward.
Next is the importance of taxation. Tax is used to provide essential services like healthcare and education. Government gather these funds and utilize them to fulfill the needs of people. So, we as a citizen could get a free or low-cost medical services at the government hospital as well as a nominal fee for government school. Besides, tax is the most important direct source of revenue for the country. Revenue is essential for country to be able to finance basic services and generate development expenditure. Lastly, tax is used for budget allocation for welfare schemes including cooking oil concession, home loan subsidies, job program and pension scheme. These programs have helped millions of Malaysians while costing billions of ringgit to implement.
Hello, my name is Nomaira Binti Zakaria. So I will proceed with current issue of taxation. First current issue in Malaysia, we have reintroduction of GST. Why they have to reintroduce it again? The purpose of reintroduce GST is to improvement the quality of products and were more consumer and businesses friendly. According to the New Straits Times 2022, about total 499 companies responded to the survey and strongly supported for the GST to replace the current SST, which is Sales and Services Tax 2.0. The Federation of Malaysia Manufacturers FMM, who is the government, consult stakeholders to review prior to the reintroduction of GST. President Tan Sri realized that apart from ensuring that it will not burden the people, it was also important to ensure the success of adopting an effective taxation system that will still help broaden the country's income base. He also states that the GST provided a fairer tax system by eliminating tax cascading and compounding, which were widespread in the SST system. Let's look at the statistics of taxation. Here are the differences of Malaysia personal income tax rate and Japan personal income tax rate from 2012 to 2021. Obviously, we can see the differences between each graph by following a few factors. By looking at the statistic graph here, the highest rate for Japan was greater than Malaysia. What can make personal income tax rate high? First factor is out-migration. What is out-migration? It is a process of people moving out of an area in their country to move to another area in their country permanently. How does it related to the tax personal income? It is because amount of individuals and households decide to relocate to different countries or states for a primary reason, such as for a job, housing, and family-related matters, so that the tax was increased. Especially in Japan, has many in and out migration for every year. Second factor is gross state products GSP. When the market value of all goods and services are higher, the government may charge the taxation for each transaction of goods and services. Referring to the graph in 2020, in Malaysia, Malaysia income tax rate will grow up to 30% than before. For your information, GSP very important to indicator of the economic development of a state and region. It is often considered the main measure and the key target of economic.
Last but not least, I am Shafika Irdina will talk about recommendation to solve tax problem. First of all, the first recommendation to solve that problem is to always pay full payment. Paying the amount on the tax notice on full payment and avoiding a conflict with the taxation authority is the proper way to go. By applying this method, we will not have outstanding tax to pay in the future, which will cause us stress and struggle to pay all those outstanding tax. However, in most situations, this is not the greatest choice for the taxpayer to settle their tax problem, as the tax bill is frequently inaccurate. As a result, if the bill is inaccurate, it can be detrimental to the money we have already paid. Besides that, do the installment agreement also can solve tax problem. A simple option to fix your tax difficulty is to pay the tax amount through an installment plan. With this agreement, you will make monthly payment against your outstanding tax amount under the term of the agreement. As a result, we will be easier and more efficient in paying tax. However, before we join into an installment agreement, we should seek professional tax advice as the taxing authority will almost always request a large monthly payment. Even so, professional tax representative will work to reach a reasonable installment agreement so that you and your family can live without causing financial and economic hardship. Lastly, the last recommendation on how to solve this tax problem is only pay the correct tax. If you can afford it, pay the correct and exact amount of tax is typically a good answer to your tax situation. By applying this method, we will not waste our money in vain because we are alert to the type of the tax and only pay the correct tax. In conclusion, there are many recommendations and methods that we can use to solve this tax problem that we often face.